Good evening, sir.
Good evening, madam.
How was the week, sir? How was your day, sir?
My day was okay, and you?
Oh, fine. Thank God.
Thank you very
Good,
much.
good.
Yeah. Good evening.
Yes, sir. So we'll just wait a bit to allow others to join.
Okay, okay.
Okay, so I'm finding it difficult to connect to my laptop. So I want to use my phone to share the slide before we start. So just give me an extra few minutes before we start. Can you hear me? I don't know if you can hear me.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay, can you hear me now?
I can hear you.
Okay. The network is quite bad. It's really logging me out.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. We can hear you, ma'am.
Okay. So for now, I'm using my phone, but I want to say I can share the slide. To share the slide, but I'll just go on. I'll go on so that the network won't cut me out. It's not accepting the format, the file, that is a PowerPoint format on my end. Oh, can you hear me now?
Yeah,
Yes,
we can
ma'am.
hear you.
Oh, okay. So there's a case study that I wanted us to read, but since I'm not sharing the slide, we'll look at that later. I wanted to show us a slide for us to have a proper understanding of licensing and franchising. But I'll just read it out, like explain it. I'll explain it anytime I'm able to share my slide. So now I'm going to compare licensing with franchising using like various features various features to describe them. Okay, so the first one now is from a business model perspective. So from a business model perspective, that so now from the licensing perspective, the licensee, now is licensee. So that is double E at the end. So the licensee have they have the right to use specific assets, just like the trademark, just like the patent, the brand name of the license. So that is the main company. But at the same time, they can operate their business independently. So anybody that has the license to sell a goods, they can sell the goods, but they are still running their business the way they want to run it. So that is from the licensing perspective. But from the franchising perspective, the franchisee gets the right to operate the entire business model, including the brand, trade secret, and the operating system. So here is saying that the company, that is the franchisee, the company that has the right to sell the business, is not only selling the name, it's also acting just as the way the main business is. So just as the way McDonald's is in US, is the same exact way McDonald's is in Nigeria. So just as the way you want your business, just as where your business is running in Nigeria, that is the same model that someone outside Nigeria, maybe in US, in UK, and in an European country is following. So they are following the same pattern, the same design, the same color, the same layout, the same staff training. They are following exactly the same model. So that is what the franchise, that is the difference between the licensing and franchising. So if with licensing, yes, they have rights to sell the products, they have right to sell, to engage in the company services, but they're operating their business the way they want to operate it. But from a franchising perspective, they are not operating, they operate the business the way they want to operate it. They are operating the business the way the original, that is the parent company, the main company is operating. They're operating the same way the main company is operating its business. So that is for business model. So now I'll look at it from another perspective, which is control. So now from the licensing perspective, the licensor has minimal control over the licensee's business operation. So just as I said previously, that the licensee has the right or has the full can operate his business independent of the licensor. So meaning that even if they have the right to sell that business, they are selling it the way they want to sell it. So the licensor has minimal control over the licensee. The last class, I gave an example of any cane that is being sold in Nigeria by Nigerian breweries, and in Ghana is controlled by Guinness. So Nigerian brewery is selling any cane the way it wants to sell it. So the company has limited control over the way the company is selling that product. In as much as that they've given it the brand name, they've given anything the brand name, but how they are going about the distribution, how they're going about the promotion, how they're going about the pricing, it is Anakin's business. So the licensor, that is the main company, don't have rights or control over the way Nigerian Brewery will go about the marketing of the product. Okay, please give me 1 minute. Let me see if I can reshare again. Let me see if I can reshare the slide so we can follow as I'm explaining. Okay, so now, one minute. Okay, so from the franchising perspective, the franchisor, that is the main company, exercise total control or strict control. So they exercise considerable control or main control over the company's business, over the company's operation, over the country or the company's operation, the way they run their marketing, the way they run the franchising, the branding, the branding, the customer training. They have control over that. So they expect the same format that is managed in the home country. I mean, they expect the same format to be managed in the host country, in as much as the parent country is running it in a particular way. So they expect that particular franchisee to run it exactly the way their company is running. So they don't want anybody to and then to know that there's a difference in the way they are running the organization. So out there are a lot of companies that are being managed by franchising. There are a lot of like coffee companies, those that are into the coffee business. Even the filling station is managed by franchising, not necessarily licensing. So the whole operation, how they go about the fueling, how they go about the pricing is the same thing. It's practically the same thing. It's practically the same thing. So they have strict control over the way the company manages its operation and its business. So that is another aspect. Then we can look at it in terms of training and in terms of support. So the licensor, they don't really give training to the business. They don't really support. The only thing they give is just the right to use the brand name, the right to use the patent, the trademark. But from the franchising perspective, they give that organization holistic support, and they also train the staff the way they ought to, run that business, the way they ought to communicate with their customers or with the customers. So they give them that, training. So that's when between licensing and franchising. The another thing, although they are both sides, that is both licensing and franchising, they tend to pay a fee, which they call it royalty fee. But if you compare it, franchising fee is quite higher because of the activities that is being involved, meaning that they are engaged in the training, they are engaged in the control, in the management, in the marketing, in the branding. So it's quite higher compared to licensing that is just at a minimum, or just a little fee. So that is just the difference between the franchisee and the franchisor. So now, in terms of legal regulation, although the from licensing, because they have the right to use the company's brand name, they have the right to use the patent, they have the right to use the trademark of that particular company. So in terms of legal regulation, most times the franchisor must have covered that aspect to an extent, because there's nobody that want to use a brand name if it's not legally regulated by the law or by the government of that land. So most times it's legally regulated. And the same thing from the franchising, in terms of the advert, in terms of the advert, in terms of the distribution and others, is mostly regulated and mostly covered by the main company. So that is just different between licensing and franchising. So franchising, they have more control over the way the business run, the franchisee business is your business run. So they control that. They don't just leave it to them to manage the way they understand how to run a business. They expect the same model. They expect the same model. They want to see the same format. So nobody will be able to differentiate, and they don't want another person or the franchisee to destroy the brand name they've built over time. So most times they are being conscious and careful. Anybody that engages in franchising, they are being conscious and careful anytime they are giving that complete control, or anytime they are giving them their name, because they don't want anything to happen to their branding. So they are more strict. They are more strict with the way they are running the business, with the way they are running the marketing activities, the customer services, they are more strict with those companies compared to licensing, that you just give them the right to use and they don't control how they use it. All what they know is that they have they've given them that permission to use it. So that is just the difference between franchising and licensing. Okay, so we'll look at the next one, which is contract manufacturing. So the slide is shared now. I don't know if you can see it from your end. So when you talk about contract manufacturing, so contract manufacturing here involves contracting contracting for the manufacture or assembly of the product by the manufacturer established in an overseas market, while still retaining the responsibility for marketing. So what he's saying is that it allows a company to break into international marketing without making the final commitment to set up complete manufacturing and selling operations, yet the way is kept open for implementing long-term development policy at an appropriate time. So what contract manufacturing here is all about is that it's just a contract for them to assemble their product or to manufacture their product. But in terms of marketing of the product, it's up to the company. It's up to the company, and this is mostly is common in most countries or companies. They tend to engage in contract manufacturing, whereby they just manufacture a product for them over there, considering the cost of moving the product over there, the cost of the custom duties and the rest. So some companies would prefer when their product is being manufactured over there, or the product is being assembled over there. So that is just what contract manufacturing is. So it's all about contract to manufacture or assemble the product in an overseas market. But in terms of the marketing of that product, in terms of the logistics of the product, in terms of the pricing of that product, is now up to the company to handle that. So contract manufacturing do not cover the marketing, do not cover the pricing and logistics of the product or services. So that is products especially. So that is what contract manufacturing is all about. Then the next one is management contracting. So for management contracting, the main focus is when there are times that organizations, because of cultural differences, language differences, preferences, government rules and regulation policies about organization running businesses in that particular economy or country. So what some organizations tend to do is that they tend to engage they tend to engage in professional managers or certain professionals to run their company, to manage their company at that particular in that particular market where they want to invest or export their products. So that's what they mostly do. So they tend to partner with some professionals, managers, like contract managers. They tend to engage with them to use their professionalism to manage the company over there. But all what they just do is just to move their products, and how the product is being managed, they are the ones to do that. And sometimes it can be in terms of technical know-how, not only in terms of the knowledge, it can be in terms of IT. So instead of them bringing their own local staff or employee over there, it might be considered expensive. So all what they will just do is to get a professional management group to just oversee the company, while they continue with the whole distribution, logistics, and movement of the goods, of the product. So that is what management contracting is all about. So one thing, although with management contracting, they don't give the professional managers like the total control. They don't give them total control. It's just for them to manage the company from their own end, since they have proper understanding of the market, proper understanding of the people, and in terms of the language differences, they are able to communicate easy with other people and other partners in that environment. So it's quite easy for them to handle that. So that is what management contracting is about. So they just manage the organization on behalf of the company over there, and sometimes they see them as professional managers. there are a lot of professional managers that are there that just help them to run the company, but the legal responsibility and the control is not owned by them. It's owned by the company, the parent company is owned by them or is controlled by them. It's not controlled by the professionals. So that is just for management contracting. Now the next one is joint venture. So joint venture, you can see it. You can look at it from the perspective of partnership. So joint venture is when two companies come together to develop to create a business, to form the business, to control to market and to control the operations of that particular business. So most times it is shared between the two companies. The ownership and the control are mostly shared. So they have to look at it in terms of percentage. Either the control ownership is 50-50 or 60-40 and the rest. So that is how they'll come to understand who has more rights or who has less rights over the business. But most times, joint partnership is a business agreement. It's a business agreement whereby two parties come together to, control the operations of that, or control and manage the operations of that business. So that is for joint venture. Then the next one is manufacturing. So manufacturing is just a general understanding of manufacturing. And when you say manufacturing, that's when the company has its own plant. The company has its own plant. The company has its own equipment. The company has its own its own plant, its own equipment, and is producing its own product in that company. It's using the raw material of that country to produce its own product. So it does not need to, move those raw materials over there. And if at all it's moving raw materials, it's not the minor, it's just a major, but other supporting, it can be in terms of the packaging and in terms of the printing and others. Those ones are done over there. But if the raw materials is mostly found in the main home country, then they will have to export to manufacture. So they don't have to engage in contract manufacturing whereby they have to look for someone to assemble or manufacture on their behalf. So what they do is that they have their own plants, they have their own machineries, and they manufacture the product all by themselves. So that is what manufacturing is all about. Then the other one is assembly operation. So assembly operation here is similar to contract manufacturing, but this assembly operation is mostly used by those that are into, should I say, OEM, that is ordinary equipment manufacturing. So that is OEM parts, that is parts and materials, whereby they have to look for companies that will just help them assemble their products together or assemble their product together. So those are the companies that mostly engage in assembly operations because it requires some machineries, facilities to do that assembling together. So there's some assembling that is just packaging assembly. They just look for someone to engage in their packaging of the product and they're able to sell. But this one is total assembling, and most times it's those within the should I say automobiles and those within the computer industries tend to do that. So all what they just is to dismantle the product, and when they get there, they're able to assemble the product before they sell to their consumers. So that is what assembly operation is all about. That's what assembly operation is all about. Then, okay, so that is all for the various market entry strategies, assembling operation. And I said assembly operation is mostly used by those within the automobile and computer industries, whereby they have to assemble the parts that's been the part that has been, should I say, they have to, I said it's still the same, they have to assemble all those parts to make it old, to make it a complete laptop or automobile as they want to sell to the final consumer. So they have to assemble all those parts together. So that is mostly what assembly operation is all about. Then for manufacturing is mostly used by companies that want to have its own plant. I want to have its own, equipment over there. And most times, when they consider the exchange rate fluctuation, when they consider the competition over there, the intensity of the competition, when they consider the duration it takes for the product to get to that particular market, how long it takes, and the loss they tend to experience because of the logistic issues, then they will prefer to have their own manufacturing plant over there. So that is another strategy, having the company having its own plant over there. Then joint venture is just a business agreement by two parties or two or more parties to have their business over there, and they both exercise control. They both decide on how their expenses, assets, ownership, they decide together if they want to make a critical decision about the organization. And as I said, for management contracting, so management contracting is when they get a local professional, it can be a local investor that will help them manage the organization. So that is what management contracting is all about. So that part is just in the management of that organization. They do not exercise total control. Neither do they have that legal responsibility to, own that company or take the equity of that particular organization to themselves. They don't have that legal right to do that. So for contract manufacturing, here it involves like contracting the manufacturer or to assemble the products by a manufacturer that is established over there. So they already have the product, but all what they just need to do is to establish, to assemble it together. But the responsibility of marketing is managed by the main company itself. So we've also looked at licensing, we've looked at franchising, then we've also looked at exporting, in which we have the direct and indirect exporting. Okay, so although the network really took, should I say, more than 30 minutes of my time, took close to 30 minutes of my time, so apologies for that. I don't know if you have one or two questions to ask before we call it a class. Our main focus today is just talk on the market entry strategies. The next class, we are to look at, we're going to look at factors influencing choice of entry mode. We're looking at that entry mode. Then before we now go to the marketing environment, international marketing environment. So those are the two major areas that we have to look at. So I don't know if you have any question to ask. For the case study, anytime you think of a question to ask, the case study that I wanted us to read comes with an assignment, but at the same time, I'm yet to form the group. So I don't know if any decision has been made, but as I said, I'll also reach out to the coordinator to see if she can create a group if no one is to do that, so that I can access and other communication can be passed to that particular group. So in the slide, there is a case study, and that case study has an assignment. That case study has an assignment. So, and I also asked if there is going to be a representative for the class, so that when we have if a student or anybody has any challenges, that person can decide to take up that responsibility to address all these issues. So only if you want me to identify someone that can just stand in for the class. If no one's ready to do that, this is like the third week. It is third week or fourth week the fourth week of this class. I think this is the third week. This is the third week, and while I'm yet to hear any response. So if I don't get any response by next week, I'll just have no choice than to just pick someone that will represent the class. Okay, so I don't know if we have a question, one or two questions to ask before we call it a class.
Yes, ma. Good evening, ma.
Good evening, ma.
Yes, ma. Well done for today's class, and thank you for the efforts you put into it, despite all the challenges we faced. This our course, International Marketing and Export. My question is that are we narrowing it down to agricultural sector or the major sectors of I don't know I don't know if you actually got me. Like, you were giving examples of automobile assembly and some other things like that. So I want to know if it is general or it will be narrowed down to agricultural sector as a whole. Thank you, ma.
Okay, thank you, ma. So although it's meant to be narrowed down to agricultural sector, but there's certain explanation, especially these market entry strategies, that some parts it will be more explanatory if it is explained from a general point of view. So just as the way we looked at licensing and we looked at franchising, so it was narrowed down to agricultural from the agribusiness perspective, but trying to explain assembling operations. So that is why I have to give that example, so it will be quite easy to understand, because assembly operation is it's just a slim line that is differentiating assembly operation from contract manufacturing. So that is why I said it's mostly used by those people in that industry. That does not mean that other sectors cannot use that, but to be able to differentiate it from contract manufacturing, the industry that most use strategy are those from the automobile and computer. But this particular course is meant to be narrowed down to the agricultural sector, agribusiness sector.
Okay, ma. Thank you, ma.
Thank you. So any other question? Okay, so I'll speak with the coordinator. There is a case study. There is a short case study in the slide, and it also carries, there's an assignment at the end of the case study. So I'll see how I can send the slide to us so that we can take the assignment from there. So we can take the assignment from there. Okay, so in the case of none, I want to say thank you very much for taking time out to attend to this lecture. Although the whole network, the rain, everything contributed to the whole connectivity and lateness in starting the class. So I understand, but hopefully next week class will be much more better than this. So I'll say thank you very much and have a great evening.
Thank you.
Thank you, ma.
Thank you, ma.
You too, ma.
Thank you, ma. Thank you.
Thank you, ma.